Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. I dragged a trash bag to the curb and my hands shook. My name is Jenna, I am 29, and I looked over my shoulder. Tara stood on the porch with one hand on her belly. She watched like a supervisor waiting for a mistake. Mark stayed behind her, and that silence felt like a lock. I tried to act casual, like this was my choice. The bag split and a sweater slid out onto the sidewalk. I crouched fast, shoving it back with stiff fingers. Tara's mouth curled like she enjoyed the scramble. I swallowed hard and kept moving because pride is stupid. "You're taking that out now," her tone was sweet and sharp. I nodded once, then reached for the second bag. She stepped down one stair, slow like a warning. "Don't slam anything," her eyes flicked to her belly. That was her shield, and she knew it worked. Mark rubbed his forehead and avoided my face. I wanted him to say my name, any name. Instead, he lifted a palm toward me like, "Calm down." You know that feeling when your throat closes on words? That was me standing there, mute and hot. I hauled the second bag and my shoulder twinged. Tara made a small gagging sound, loud enough to sting. "God, it reeks," she pressed her lips tight. It did not smell like anything, it was clean laundry. But she needed me to feel dirty, so she made it real. I set the bag down and turned back toward the door. Tara blocked the entry with one foot, casual and bold. "We need to talk about house rules," she announced. Mark's gaze dropped to the floor like he expected this. My stomach tightened because rules never went both ways. I tried to slide past and she leaned in closer. Not near me, she held up a finger between us. I froze on instinct like I had stepped on glass. Her eyes darted to Mark, checking if he watched. He did watch, and he still did nothing. I forced a small laugh and it came out wrong. "Okay, what rules?" My voice sounded thin to me. Tara's eyebrows lifted like I was slow. "No noise after 9, no guests, no cooking smells." She listed them fast like she rehearsed. I stared at her, then looked at Mark again. He shifted his weight and gave a tiny nod. That nod punched harder than her words. I wanted to argue, but my brain stalled out. Have you ever felt yourself get smaller on purpose? Tara took my pause as consent and stepped inside. She walked straight toward my hallway, not hers. I followed because I could not help it. She stopped at my door and tapped it twice. That tap felt like she owned the hinge. "This room is a mess," she said without looking in. It was not a mess, it was one hamper and a chair. I opened my mouth, then shut it again. Mark lingered behind her, hands in his pockets. He looked like a guy waiting for weather to pass. Tara pushed my door open with her elbow. She did not ask, she did not glance at me. Her eyes swept the space and her lip curled. "This can't be near the baby," she waved vaguely. The baby was not even here yet, and I was already the risk. I stepped in front of her just enough to mat her. "Please don't go through my stuff," my heart beat loud. Tara tilted her head like I had insulted her. She pressed a hand to her belly and inhaled slowly. I knew that move, and I hated that I knew it. Mark's voice finally showed up, soft and careful. "Jen, just let her settle," he scratched his jaw. Settle, like she was a storm cloud with feelings. I stared at him, trying to read his face. All I saw was surrender, and it scared me. Tara walked past me anyway and grabbed my hamper. She lifted it like it was contaminated and heavy. "I'll put this outside, it's disgusting," her nose wrinkled. I reached out, then stopped midair like an idiot. "Because what do you do, wrestle a pregnant woman?" I followed her down the hall, breathing fast. She carried my clothes toward the back door. Mark trailed behind us, and he still did not intervene. I heard my own voice, and it sounded too polite. "Tara, stop, that's mine." My palms were sweaty. She paused at the door and glanced over her shoulder. "Mine too, I live here now." Her smile stayed small. Mark flinched like that line surprised even him. I looked at him, waiting for a correction. He just blinked and my gut dropped. Tara set the hamper down outside and wiped her hands. Then she pulled out her phone and typed with one thumb. I caught the screen for half a second, one message visible. It read, "Phase 1 done," then she locked it. My mouth went dry because that was not normal. I tried to pretend I had not seen it. I bent and gathered my clothes, shaking with embarrassment. Tara stepped closer, lowering her voice for the first time. You'll learn your place or you'll leave. Her eyes stayed flat. And right then Mark shut the door behind her, leaving me outside. My hand slapped my pocket and my work badge was gone. I checked the counter and the hook by the door. I checked my bag twice and my pulse kept climbing. Tara watched me search a bored face. Then she smiled like she had solved something. You lose things when you're stressed, she murmured. Her fingers traced the edge of her mug like a metronome. Mark stood near the sink and stared past us. I wanted to ask him to help, but pride kept blocking me. Have you ever hated your own restraint in real time? I went to the front step and scanned the yard. My badge had a bright clip it should have shown. I crouched and looked under the welcome mat anyway. Tara's laugh came from inside, short and pleased. That sound made my stomach twist. I walked to the trash bin and lifted the lid. Something scraped and my badge flashed near the bottom. It sat under sticky bags like it belonged there. My fingers hesitated because this felt like a message. So why was my hand shaking like I got caught? I fished it out and wiped it on my jeans. The clip was bent and the photo was smeared. Tara leaned in the doorway and pressed her lips together. She gave me a slow nod like she approved. Mark did not move and that hurt more. I stepped inside and held the badge up at chest level. Funny place for it, my voice sounded too calm. Tara tilted her chin and stared at my hand. Maybe you threw it out during your little tantrum. Mark's eyes flicked to the floor like it offered shelter. I stood there a second longer than I should have. My brain kept inventing excuses for all of them. Then something snapped and I grabbed my phone. Not to call anyone yet, just to document the damage. It felt petty, but it also felt like oxygen. I took a photo of the bent clip. I took another with the badge beside the open bin. My hands moved fast like I was afraid of myself. Tara watched the screen and her smile thinned. Her eyes told me I had changed the game. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. You're really going to stress the baby over a badge. Her palm spread over her stomach in that practiced move. I hated that it worked on Mark every time. So I looked at her hand, not her face. Mark finally spoke, voice soft like he feared noise. Can we just have one calm morning? I stared at him and my throat tightened again. I wanted to scream that I was trying to keep my job. Instead, I nodded once and walked away, furious. I went to the mailbox before leaving for work. One envelope sat there with Tara's name in bold. My fingers hovered, then pulled it out anyway. It said change of address confirmation across the front. My heart gave one hard thump and then another. I did not open it right there. I slid it into my bag like it was hot. Inside the house, Tara started humming, light and smug. Mark called my name from the kitchen, careful. I ignored him and kept walking because I needed space. At a stoplight, I tore the envelope open. The form listed our address as her primary residence. It showed a start date that matched her first night. I stared at the page until the light changed again. Why would she lock that in so fast? I parked and snapped photos of every line. I sent them to myself and saved backups. My hands were steady now, which scared me. I felt like I was building a case against family. And I still wondered if I was the problem. When I got home, Tara was on the couch, feet up. She looked at my bag like she expected a prize. I held the letter out and kept my voice flat. What is this? My knuckles went white around the paper. She blinked slow like I had bored her. Nesting stuff, she said, waving a hand. Her other hand stayed on her belly like a badge. Mark hovered near the hallway and rubbed his neck. She probably clicked the wrong thing, he offered. Tara's eyes slid to him and he stopped talking. I stepped toward Mark and lowered the letter between us. Did you know about this? My voice went tight. He shook his head too fast, then slowed down. I did not sign anything, his mouth looked dry. So why did Tara keep smiling like she already won? Tara leaned forward and tapped the paper with one fingernail. It's just mail, stop acting unstable. That word hit me harder than I expected. Mark looked at me like he was weighing options. And in that pause I realized she was training him too. I walked to my room and shut the door. I set my phone on the dresser and turned on recording. Not for drama, for proof, and I hated myself for it. From the hall, Tara's voice floated in, sweet and sharp. She's going to ruin my pregnancy, she whispered, loud enough for me. I yanked the pantry door open and Tara snapped, don't touch that. Her hand shot out like a gate, then returned to her stomach. I froze with my fingers still in the air. Mark stood behind me and did not step in. That silence felt like a green light for her. I'm making food I can tolerate, she announced. She slid in front of the shelves, blocking my reach. I stared at her and tried to keep my face neutral. My stomach growled and I hated that it did. Have you ever felt embarrassed by a basic need? I turned toward the fridge and Tara followed. She slapped a note onto the door with quick fingers. It read, approved foods only, ask first. My eyes scanned it once, then twice like it would change. Mark's jaw tightened and he still stayed quiet. I peeled the note off and folded it in my fist. Tara's eyes widened and her breath went theatrical. Do not do that, it spikes my blood pressure. She pressed her palm to her chest, then her belly. Mark lifted both hands like I was the threat. I set the note on the counter, flat and careful. I'm eating, that's all, my voice came out steady. Tara stepped closer, close enough to steal my air. You're selfish, you're making this house unsafe. The word unsafe landed like a label on my forehead. Mark slid between us and faced me, not her. Can you just go order something? His eyes begged. I blinked hard because I felt stupidly betrayed. Ordering food was not the point and he knew it. Tara watched his body block me and looked satisfied. I walked to my room and pulled my phone from my pocket. My finger hovered over recording again, then stopped. I hated how fast I reached for evidence now. Part of me kept thinking I was overreacting. Then Tara rattled my doorknob, testing it like a lockpick. Open up, her voice stayed sweet, which made it worse. I cracked the door and kept my hand on the knob. Her eyes slid past me into my room, hunting. Why are you hiding? That's suspicious. I swallowed a laugh because it sounded insane. Mark appeared behind her and glanced at my face. He looked tired, like I was an extra shift. Tara leaned into him and he gave her his arm. She squeezed his wrist like she owned his pulse. Then she looked back at me, calm and cold. We're redoing the hallway, she declared. She held up a paper like it was official. I need your room cleared for storage. My mouth opened and nothing came out at first. That moment felt like my brain tripped over itself. I stepped into the hall and held my palm out. Let me see that, my voice sounded sharp. Tara lifted her chin and kept the paper just out of reach. Mark reached for it, then stopped mid-motion. That pause told me he had already seen it. I moved closer and Tara backed up one step. Her fingers pinched the paper tighter, defensive. You're not entitled to question me, her lips tightened. I stared at the page anyway and caught a heading. It said occupancy status and my stomach dropped. Mark finally took the paper, slow like it burned. He skimmed it and his face went pale. Tara watched him read like she fed him a script. He looked up at me, eyes wide and wet. I didn't do this, he whispered, barely audible. I reached for the paper and Tara snapped it back. Her smile came back fast, too smooth. It's just a draft, stop panicking. She slid it behind her back, hiding it from me. Why hide it if it was harmless? I walked past her toward the kitchen counter. I needed space before I said something ugly. Tara followed and kept talking, steady and cutting. You're temporary, you don't contribute, you drain him. Mark flinched at that, but he still let it land. I spun around and pointed at her stomach, then stopped. That would have made me the villain instantly. So I pointed at the paper instead, empty-handed. Show me what you're filing, my voice shook anyway. Tara's eyes glittered like she enjoyed the tremble. She turned to Mark and pressed her head to his shoulder. I can't handle her aggression, she murmured. Her fingers dug into his shirt, claiming comfort. Mark's gaze flicked to me, then away. I realized she was making him choose in real time. I stepped back and forced my hands into my pockets. Fine, I'm leaving the room locked. Tara's head lifted and her eyes narrowed. You can't lock doors in my home. That word might hit like a shove, my home became hers. Mark exhaled and nodded toward me again. Just don't escalate, his voice sounded defeated. I stared at him and something inside me went quiet. I wanted to plead, but my pride refused. So I nodded once, and Tara smiled like she won another point. Later, I found the same paper on the counter unattended. My fingers moved before my conscience caught up. I snapped photos of the section with my name on it. It labeled me temporary occupant in plain text. Then I saw a signature line already filled in, and it was his. I shoved my phone toward Mark and pointed at the signature line. His face drained and his hands started fluttering. I didn't sign that, he shook his head too hard. Tara's footsteps stopped behind us like she was listening. Then she walked in smiling like she already knew my next move. I slid the paper into a drawer and shut it fast. Not to hide it from Mark, to hide it from her. Tara leaned on the counter and watched my fingers. "You two look guilty," she murmured, almost playful. Mark's shoulders slumped like he had been caught stealing. "I see." Peeped close to him and kept my voice low. "Call your brother now." My eyes stayed locked on his. Mark swallowed and rubbed his palms on his jeans. Tara tilted her head, tracking every tiny motion. Her calm felt rehearsed, and it made my skin prickle. Mark pulled his phone out and stepped into the hallway. Tara followed him halfway, then glanced back at me. "You're trying to turn him against me," she warned. Her tone was soft, which made the threat louder. I kept my face still, but my pulse ran wild. I walked into my room and shut the door again. My hand hovered over my phone like it weighed a pound. I wanted to call someone too, but pride kept fighting me. Then Mark knocked once, quick like a code. His whisper pushed through the crack, "Ethan S. picking up." I snatched the phone from his hand and pressed it to my ear. A man's voice answered, tight and exhausted. Yeah, it sounded like he expected trouble. My mouth went dry and I hated that weakness. So I forced the words out anyway, fast and blunt. "Your wife is filing things with my name on them." There was a long pause on the other end. Then Ethan exhaled like he had been holding it all day. "Tell me what you saw." His voice turned steady. That steadiness made me realize I was not crazy. I described the form without adding extra drama. I kept it to facts because I needed him to believe me. Mark hovered at my shoulder, eyes fixed on the floor. Ethan cut in with one question, sharp and focused. "Did you see a signature that wasn't yours?" I looked at Mark and he finally met my eyes. His lips parted, then he nodded once, miserable. I told Ethan the signature looked like Mark's handwriting. Ethan went quiet again, then spoke slower. "She's done this before, check for scanned signatures." I blinked at the phrase like it was another language. "Scanned signatures," my voice cracked, then steadied. Ethan's breath hit the speaker like frustration. "She copies what she needs, she pastes it on forms." My hand clenched because that was not petty behavior. Mark flinched and took a step back. "She can't do that," he muttered, more hope than certainty. Ethan's voice stayed flat, almost tired. "She can, she will, she already did." That last line hit like a door slamming shut. I walked straight to Mark's laptop on the dining table. My fingers hovered above the trackpad, then pressed down. Mark leaned in, still talking like he needed permission. "I don't even know her password stuff," his voice shook. I ignored it and opened the recent files anyway. A folder sat there with a boring name and fresh dates. I clicked it and my throat tightened instantly. Inside were PDFs with labels that matched our argument. My hands moved too fast, like panic had a steering wheel. And right then I realized Tara planned this with steps. Mark reached for the screen and stopped midair. "I swear I didn't make that." His eyes looked wet. I opened the first PDF and scrolled until the bottom. A signature sat there, clean and confident. It looked like Mark S., but something felt off. I zoomed in and my stomach turned hard. The signature edges were too crisp, like it was pasted. I dragged the file into another window and checked details. A scanned image layer sat on top of the text. It was proof, and it made my hands go cold. I opened a second PDF and the same pattern showed up. Then a third, and my chest started to feel tight. Mark backed away and pressed both palms to his face. "I didn't sign any of this." His voice broke. I believed him now, and that scared me more. I heard slow steps behind us, Tara again. I did not turn around because I needed one more look. I clicked another file and my breath caught. My old signature appeared on the screen, copied and dropped in. I froze because that signature was mine. Tara's voice slid in light and controlled. "What are you doing on that?" She stood in the doorway. I angled the screen away, then realized it was useless. She already knew what we found and her face confirmed it. Her smile twitched, then snapped back into place. Mark lifted a hand toward her, trembling. "Tara, what is this?" His voice sounded smaller than I expected. She walked closer and held her belly like it was armor. "You're stressing me out, you want me to collapse." She kept her eyes on me, not him, like I was the target. I stood up and put my phone in my pocket. Not to hide it, to keep it safe. "Tara, you used my signature." My voice came out flat. Her laugh popped out fast and wrong. "Paranoid much?" She leaned closer like she wanted a reaction. I pulled my phone out and started recording openly. Her eyes flicked to the lens, then narrowed. "You're harassing a pregnant woman," she snapped. Mark stepped between us at last, hands out torn. And in that moment I knew she would flip the script. Tara turned her body sideways and clutched her stomach hard. Her voice went high, shaky, suddenly fragile. "I do F. Feel safe." She stared at Mark like he owed her rescue. Mark looked at me with panic, then at her with guilt. I could see the trap closing and I could not stop it. A hard knock hit the front door, 3 quick thuds. Tara's face smoothed like she had practiced this scene. Mark's eyes went wide and he whispered my name like a warning. Then a voice carried from the other side, firm and official. "Police department, we need to speak with you." Mark cracked the door and kept his body in the gap. 2 officers stood there with neutral faces and clipped posture. Tara pressed past Mark, already holding her belly like proof. Her eyes locked on me, then she let out a tiny sob. That sound told me she started the story before they arrived. One officer lifted a hand, slow and firm. "Is everyone safe in here?" His gaze moved between us. Tara nodded fast and pointed at me without fully pointing. "She's been aggressive all day," she breathed, voice trembling. Mark's throat bobbed and he did not correct her. I stepped forward and held my palms open. "I want this documented, I have records." My voice stayed flat. Tara's head snapped toward me, sharp and annoyed. The second officer glanced at my phone, then back at Tara. That glance felt like my first inch of ground. The first officer asked who lived here, direct and calm. Tara answered instantly, like she practiced in the mirror. "She's a guest now, I'm the one who needs stability." Mark flinched at the word guest, then looked away again. I watched his loyalty wobble in his eyes. I pulled my phone up and stopped recording the room. Not to be dramatic, to protect myself from twisting. Tara's mouth tightened when she saw the red dot. The second officer nodded once, like he understood why. Tara noticed that nod and her confidence flickered. "Ma'am, take a breath," the first officer told Tara. His voice stayed even, no softness, no scolding. Tara took a long inhale and squeezed Mark's arm hard. Mark stiffened like he was being steered by pressure. I hated him for allowing it, then hated myself for that hate. The second officer turned to me and spoke slowly. "What exactly are you alleging?" He kept his tone neutral. I swallowed and forced myself to be precise. "Identity misuse, documents, and a false report today." Tara's eyes narrowed like I had crossed a line. Tara stepped closer to the officers, shoulders folded inward. "She's unstable, she records me, she tries to provoke me." Mark gave a tiny nod again, then froze mid-nod. He saw my face and seemed to regret it instantly. That regret landed too late, like a late apology. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over my photo folder like it weighed a ton. I showed the bent badge photo first, then the bin shot. The second officer leaned in, eyes sharp, not impressed by drama. Tara shifted behind him, trying to see the screen. The first officer asked if I could show a timeline. I opened the image details and pointed at the timestamps. My hand stayed steady, which surprised even me. Tara let out a scoff and rolled her eyes. That scoff felt like a mistake she could not take back. Mark suddenly spoke, voice thin and strained. "She didn't throw it out, Tara did." His words stumbled. Tara whipped her head toward him, stunned and furious. Mark's hands lifted like he was bracing for impact. I watched Tara's mask tighten at the edges. The second officer asked for the documents I mentioned. I walked to the dining table and opened the laptop again. Mark hovered behind me, breathing fast, eyes wide. Tara moved closer too, then stopped when the officer raised a hand. Her patience cracked in that small moment. I clicked the folder and pulled up the first PDF. I zoomed in on the signature block and held the screen steady. The second officer pointed at the signature edge and frowned. Looks like an overlay, his tone stayed calm but firm. Tara's face went stiff like plastic. Tara forced a laugh that sounded wrong in the room. You can't prove anything from a laptop, she snapped. The first officer looked at her and did not react. Ma'am, please stop interrupting, his voice did not budge. Tara blinked fast like she had never been told no. The second officer asked Mark if he signed anything. Mark shook his head and swallowed hard, eyes glassy. I never signed those forms, he muttered, barely above air. Tara turned to him and whispered something under her breath. Mark recoiled like her whisper burned. My phone buzzed in my pocket and I ignored it. Then it buzzed again and I checked the screen by reflex. Ethan's name lit up with 3 missed calls. My chest tightened because this was about to get bigger. I answered and put it on speaker because hiding helps liars. Ethan's voice came through sharp and controlled. I'm outside, let me in, his words landed like a hammer. Tara's eyes widened then narrowed into anger. Mark stared at the door. It might explode. The officers exchanged a quick look, then nodded toward the entry. Mark opened the door and Ethan stepped in fast. He did not look at me first, he looked at Tara. Tara lifted her chin like she was ready for battle. Ethan's jaw clenched and his hands curled at his sides. The room went quiet, heavy and waiting. What did you do? Ethan asked, voice low and steady. Tara spread her fingers over her belly, defensive and familiar. You're choosing them over me, she shot back, eyes wet. Ethan did not step toward her, which said everything. Mark shifted behind Ethan like a kid hiding from thunder. Ethan pointed at the laptop without touching it. Show me, his eyes never left Tara. I scrolled to the file with my signature pasted in. Ethan leaned in and exhaled through his nose hard. Tara's lips parted, then closed again like a trap. Tara snapped, you don't understand stress during pregnancy. She stepped toward Ethan and reached for his hand. Ethan pulled his hand back, fast and final. I understand fraud, he said, voice flat and cold. That word hit the air and did not move. The first officer asked Tara to step aside and sit. Tara refused with a sharp shake of her head. No, I'm not being treated like a criminal, she insisted. The second officer lifted his palm again, patient and firm. Ma'am, cooperate or you may be removed, he warned. I pulled up the audio recording from my room. My thumb hovered, then I hit play before I chickened out. Tara's voice filled the room, clear and controlled. It was her whisper about me ruining her pregnancy, loud enough for me. Tara lunged forward at the sound, eyes wild. Her hand shot toward my phone, fast and desperate. The second officer stepped in and blocked her arm mid-swing. Tara jerked back like she touched fire, breathing hard. Ethan stared at her with something like disbelief. Mark's face crumpled like he finally saw the whole thing. Tara backed up and pointed at me again, shaking. She set me up, she's obsessed with me, she yelled. I almost laughed, and that would have ruined everything. So I stayed still and let the recording finish. The last words played, then silence hit like a slap. Ethan turned to the officers and spoke carefully. I want her out of here tonight, he said, voice steady. Tara looked at him like he had betrayed her blood. You can't kick me out, I'm carrying your child, she hissed. Ethan nodded once and his calm felt brutal. You can stay with your sister, Ethan replied, eyes fixed. No more paperwork, no more games, his voice did not rise. Tara stared at Mark next, searching for backup. Mark stared at the floor and his silence finally helped me. Tara's face hardened and I saw pure spite. The first officer asked Tara if she had somewhere else to go. Tara crossed her arms and pressed her lips tight. Ethan pulled out his phone and made a quick call. I did not catch the name, only the tone, urgent and final. Tara listened, then looked away like she lost control. Tara stomped down the hall toward the guest room. She yanked the door open and started stuffing things into a bag. Her movements were sharp and messy, like she wanted to punish walls. Mark hovered near the doorway, hands useless at his sides. I watched him and felt tired in my bones. When Tara marched back, she stopped inches from my face. Her eyes were dry now, cold and focused. "This isn't over," she whispered, voice steady and mean. I did not answer because any answer would feed her. The officer stepped closer and Tara backed down a fraction. Ethan walked her to the door with the officers nearby. Tara paused on the step and turned back, slow and deliberate. She looked at Mark like she wanted to mark him. Then she looked at me like I was garbage she could not remove. That look stayed with me longer than I want to admit. After the door shut, Mark sank onto the floor. He rubbed his face hard like he could erase the day. "I didn't protect you," he muttered, voice broken. I wanted to comfort him, and I hated that impulse. So I just stood there, staring at the closed door. Ethan looked at me and nodded once, respectful and grim. "I'm sorry," he said, and I believed him. He glanced at Mark and his expression tightened. "You need to fix what you let happen," he added. Mark flinched like the words left a bruise. I packed a small bag and kept my movements controlled. Mark watched me like I was walking off a cliff. "You're leaving too," his voice cracked on the last word. I nodded once because my throat refused more. You know that moment when peace feels like quitting. I stayed with a friend for a week and barely slept. Mark texted apologies that sounded like panic, not change. Ethan sent one message with a screenshot of a lawyer's appointment. I felt relief, then guilt, then relief again. My emotions kept switching like a bad signal. On day 6, Tara texted from a new number. It was one line. Short and cruel with no apology. "You're still trash to me," the word sat there bold and stupid. My thumb hovered, then I blocked it without thinking. And for once, my hand did not hesitate.